Meanwhile, the LA Rams had every reason to be completely focused, to be ready to go, to prove to their head coach and their front office, who had enough faith in them to make the all-in move for Von Miller, even though he didn't play. It gives the team, I think, a surge of confidence in theory. Didn't work last night. When you consider that the Saints lost, Packers lost, Cowboys lost, and the Cardinals won, so they were compelled to hold serve to stay tied for first place in their division. They're already down a tiebreaker to the Cardinals because the Cardinals had been responsible for the Rams' only loss. To come out the way they did and look the way they did and play the way they did, Sean McVay, coach of the team, here he is after the game, taking the blame for what happened to the Los Angeles Rams.
I didn't do nearly a good enough job for our football team tonight. We were uncharacteristic with the penalties, the turnovers, but I really think, the defense started off. They were giving us a chance. It was a good big-time interception by Jalen, and then ultimately really just the momentum and the flow of the game. I didn't do nearly a good enough job of helping our players establish that, particularly on offense. You go back, you look at yourself critically, and we get these things corrected. But, that's all I know how to do. That's what we'll do. I trust the character of this locker room to be able to respond the right way. But not nearly good enough, and it starts with me. You go back and you say, all right, we're not going to allow one game to define us. I don't think that's reflective of the type of football team we are. We had a rough night, and it really seemed like that was the narrative for the night. Really it was, a lot of those things that occurred that are uncharacteristic, and I choose to believe that tonight was not the reflection of who we are. We can look at it, we'll correct it, and we'll keep it moving.
I got to give Sean McVay credit, Mike. No matter the circumstance, no matter the situation, no matter win, no matter lose, his caffeine tank is always full.
Oh, there's no doubt about it. He is a high-energy guy. I'd imagine around that building it's got to be real high energy. But listen, his defense, they weren't awful by any stretch of the imagination. Holding Tennessee under 200 yards. The defense gives up 21, or the Rams give up 21 points a game. Well, that's really what the defense gave up, right? Because Tennessee had a pick six and also put the Rams defense in a hole, giving them the ball like at the 1 or 2 yard line after the other interception. So by those standards, they didn't do bad statistically. Then they had some penalties that hurt them, again, even though that Aaron Donald penalty was ridiculous. So they did put themselves in a bad position. To me, it was that offense. That offense couldn't get anything going. That offense goes out on downs. It was 6 minutes to go. Again, credit to Tennessee. That offense is kicking field goals instead of getting touchdowns, 3 field goals. And think of if trying to get in the end zone there instead to make this a more competitive game. They couldn't do it on the offensive side of the ball. And that's Sean McVay's side. That's where, that's where he does his magic.
Cooper Kupp became the first player this season to have more than 1,000 receiving yards. It's not something that you really celebrate after a win like that, or a loss like that, but only the second player in the Super Bowl era, Mike, to have 1,000 receiving yards and 10 or more receiving touchdowns in the first 9 games. The only other person to do that was Jerry Rice in 1990. So, portions of the offense are still working, but the problem last night was too many breakdowns in the offensive line. The Titans' pass rush was too good. 5 sacks of Matthew Stafford. He was banged up. I was surprised he was in the game in garbage time after he had that ankle injury and they had to retape it, and he came into the game with a back injury. I don't know what they were trying to do there. I don't know if it was stat padding. I don't know if it was trying to recover some sense of confidence after things fell apart. I'd have gotten him the hell out of there.
Yeah, that's the thing about, and you see him rolling around on the ground at times too, limping around. It is interesting, Mike, in how different it is in college and the NFL. NFL guys just stay in, win or loss. Rarely do you see. Sometimes you see it, but not a lot do you see guys come out. They're in it for the long haul and they stay in. So that doesn't surprise me as much, but I certainly understand what you're saying because God forbid you get someone hurt. They get a garbage touchdown with 24 seconds to go. Again, they're out of it because, that Tennessee defense and it's holding them to field goals instead of getting touchdowns. But that rush of Tennessee, you said it, 5 sacks. I mean, when you say 5 sacks, you have to understand it's usually double to triple the times you're actually getting to the quarterback and hitting the quarterback or harassing the quarterback. It's not just 5 times you get there for sacks. They were on him all night. That D-line again, and Jeffrey Simmons had 3 of those 5 sacks and could have had that one again if Stafford doesn't do the twirling dervish thing and throw the ball and get it picked off. That would have been another sack there. So what they did to that O-line, you said it, the O-line and breakdown, there was last night. They were just getting – there are games when you line up, Mike, and you go into film the next day and you watch it where you can get beat, but you can get physically beat. And, man, in a testosterone-filled game where it's mano-a-mano a lot of times, if you get physically dominated, that's something tough to take that next day when you sit in that meeting room and have to watch it all over again.
Yeah, and that's part of what the Rams are going to have to regroup from after that loss. So the Rams fall to 7-2. The Titans climb to 7-2, and 2 teams that feel like they're moving in different directions. But we saw the Rams recover from their other loss of the season. They'll figure it out. They're going to be there at the end of the day. The question, though, is, Mike, do you get the 1 seed? Do you even win your division? Do you have to go on the road and do it the hard way? Now, it didn't hurt the Buccaneers last year, but it's always better in the postseason to have home games. But maybe it isn't. Home teams are now 65-70 this year. And when you factor in the reality that 3 of those games were neutral site and the home team won each of them, true home teams are 62-70 this year. It is unbelievable that even with the fans back and the noise is a factor, the road teams are getting it done.
But I'll quickly say this. That's September, October, the beginning of November. What these teams are looking for, and all teams are looking for, is if that road has to go through Green Bay in January. Do the Rams want to go to Green Bay? Do the Cardinals want to go to Green Bay? Where do Buffalo? Can they, who's going to have it in the AFC? That's when it matters more, when all of a sudden those elements come into play and you need certain parts of your team to be playing well at that time of year. So while I'm with you, that stat is like, okay, home field isn't doing a whole lot. There's a huge difference of cold weather and warm weather cities come playoff time in January when it could really matter.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.